is going on, everybody? This is Paul from For Real. We have Shawn Gray today from the HERPS reptile shows. If you have not checked out their website, do so. I'm going to say that your website is arguably one of the nicest websites I have ever seen.
I appreciate it, man. That's a lot of hard work went into that.
Yeah, that's legitimately one of the coolest sites, very easy to navigate. So for anybody that's in the area for any of these shows, jump on, take a look at it. Before we start this, I'm going to do my usual USARK plug. If you're not a member of USARK, I hate to say it this way, you're an idiot. If you have not seen what just happened in South Carolina, that might have been one of the scariest bills, I think, to date. If you, I don't know if you saw it. Did you see what they did?
It was for the it was banning all non-native venomous, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I saw JT actually just shared it. So
what they did was they waited until that swine bill got all the way through and right up to the end for the House vote, added the venomous down to the bottom. And if you watch some of the videos that are out there, Willie from Venom Central did a really good job at kind of giving the what for about it. But if you look at that bill, they snuck it through. It passed 102 to 2.
Wow.
So when he talked to his representative didn't even know there was venomous on there.
Yeah.
So they never even read it. They knew that the beginning of it was, yeah, whatever. We're just going to, here you go. There's my name.
Yeah.
So it went through today and it went through a vote. They removed the venomous. It was voted down 0 to 44.
Wow. That's good.
So, it's scary that they can just do this stuff and just.
That happens a lot with the animal rights activists. They put money in the lobbyists' pockets to add those at the end all the time. And it's, like you said, it's scary, but one of these days something's going to slip through.
Yeah.
And then USARK is going to be there to fight it. So if you're not supporting them, then it's ruining your own business.
I always say this. I started doing these shows back in January, and I had my first episode with Rob from Nerd, and we kind of talked. And I say this all the time. I love USARK, obviously supporting, but USARK is a reactionary tool that we have. It's like that dog that protects you in your house. You know, that dog's not roaming the neighborhood looking to bite somebody. That dog is waiting for somebody to come through that front door so that it can protect you.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
They do such a good job at it. It's insane. But as reptile keepers, we need to be the front line of what's happening to keep everything in our states safe for us. And that starts off with keeping animals properly, going to shows and supporting shows that are good to have around. I've never been to one of your shows, but I know people that do them, and I know people that go, and they all say the same thing. Ha, 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 you guys don't have a herp show in Florida. So, you know, it's one of those things that people don't get the opportunity to get out and see awesome animals, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. When you go to a reptile show, that's where you want to go and see that retic or that berm or that rattlesnake or that ball python or that leopard gecko, your first reptile. And you want to have a quality vendor that's going to give you all the information. So, Shawn, where did you guys come up with the idea for this, and how did it all get started?
So, personally, I've been keeping reptiles since I was a kid, 8, 9 years old in South Texas. But I started off with a few bearded dragons and chameleons and playing around. And my wife went full bore into leopard geckos. My daughter got a leopard gecko as a pet one time, and that turned into, after a few years, producing close to 1,000 babies a year. So we were actually, but it was quality stuff. We started off with just basic stuff in the beginning, and then started into the higher end genetics. And once I started learning all of the genetics behind the leopard geckos, we did some really cool projects. And so we started vending shows for a long time, actually. And we vended shows. We vended 1-day shows in some areas, mainly 2-day shows. We did a lot of the Repticon shows. We did some local shows. we were both working full-time jobs, and like on the weekends packing up and going and traveling wherever and doing a show a weekend and coming back and working and taking care of the animals. My kids were involved, and whenever Facebook started with paid advertising and I saw some of the early potential with marketing, I was actually pushing my own business at some of these shows we were vending more than the actual show promoters were. They weren't really, no one really wanted to take that leap into putting a large sum of money into advertising for shows. And the quality was just horrible at some of these shows. I literally sat next to tables with dead animals, would complain to the promoters, and they would say there's nothing they could do. Well, that's bullshit. There's absolutely something you can do. And so the idea came up in about 2014 to try to do my own show. I was buying mealworms from a guy named Charlie Paskett. He was my mealworm. I was doing $250,000 to 500,000 mealworms a month from this guy.
Holy cow!
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we had a lot of geckos, but and other animals too. But so we would talk after work at night. I would get off. We would talk and started forming the idea of an expo that we wanted to do that I had originally planned on doing, that took it from a vendor's perspective. Instead of worrying about, I'm just going to make $1 at the door for these show promoters, that we wanted to see it from the vendor's perspective. What kind of shit did I see behind the table that I wanted changed, basically? And so we started in Conroe in 2015. In January 2015 was our first show ever, and it was a really good show. Looking back, it pales in comparison to what it's grown to now, but that first show was kind of a stepping stone to evolving. So we did 3 shows the first year, 2 in Conroe, 1 in Austin, and now we're doing 30 shows a year in 5 different states. But I've taken everything back from what we're making these shows and put them into the next show, and we're trying to build it. And I haven't reached the ceiling of advertising, but the advertising part of it was where I was teaching myself all the Facebook algorithms. But the biggest thing that you'll hear, and you may have heard this from our shows, is that our vendors and our customers are our family, and we live and die by that, because if you don't take care of your vendors, you won't have vendors. There's no vendors there's no customers coming. The more customers come in and see that there's a big variety and the animals are quality, they're going to tell their friends, you got to go to this show. The word is spread. So not only am I doing all the social media marketing and advertising, my wife keeps everything organized like you wouldn't believe. She quit her job almost 3 years ago. She was working full time as well, and came on to me, and she's changed the whole game as far as all behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees. And then she works the register. So it really is a family business for us. It's my wife and I that run the whole thing. We have people that volunteer and help. We pay friends and family to come run registers, and you'll see me running around a show checking on animals, and I jump behind vendor tables and sell animals. Like it's not just I'm going to open the door and throw some tables in and collect money from vendors and laugh at everybody. No, we actually work our asses off of this. So that was the whole honest of getting the thing going, was let's do something different that hasn't been done before. So,
and I'll say just from experience. So originally I was in New York, and me and a close friend of mine had gone to a couple shows, and we were like, man, this is just horrible. Like you go down, to other cities and other states, and you're like, like you said, dead animals, half dead animals, just no logical reason as to why. And so we started to put the stuff together, and unfortunately at that time, young kids and a full-time job, it wasn't something that I could step off and do. So, but I look back at that, and I look at the shows that we've gone to here in Florida, and I say, man, I see the pictures and people's videos, and you hear people talk about some of the big shows, and you're like, wow, I wish some of the shows that we went to could be that way. Because when somebody asks me at work, hey, I want to get a bearded dragon or a leopard gecko for my kid, where's the best place? I always tell them, we'll go to a reptile show. There's the Repticon dates, check this out. Look for these breeders, this is what you want to look for, or just let me know and I'll go with you. But I've been to some shows where it's just like people with deli cups on tables. And, I guess I don't have as big a problem with that if you're presenting it right and the animals are healthy. But
Yeah, and that's how we started. I started
Sure.
with a queen sheet that we got from Walmart and some deli cups, but we tried to make it, we put colored bedding or, colored paper towel or whatever we could do to make them pop out and stand out differently. Of course, ours were high quality. They were all healthy animals. And then we evolved from there with LED lights and acrylics and stands and more tables. And, when we finally decided to start downsizing and focusing on actually doing our own show, I was doing 4 tables at the NERBC show, and we had 200 geckos, 300 geckos on our table, and big 2 booths, and it was crazy. But that's like having 2 other full-time jobs. But so a lot of the problem that you see is that the people that work for some of these shows, and there's like, I can't say, I'm not going to sit here and dog every Repticon show.
No, for sure.
I think that their process during COVID kind of messed them up a lot, the way that they're handling everything. There are some good vendors that actually still vend those shows because they still rely on those shows to provide for their families.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always going to support those guys. There's no animosity between vendors coming to my show and going to Repticon. I don't play that crap with them.
For sure.
I don't think that that's right. They're still trying to hustle and provide for their family, and they're trying to educate people on the right vendors to buy from, and so that's always going to be there. But the people that work at those shows at Repticon have no power. They don't. Yeah. You won't go to a HERPS show and it's not me and my wife running the show. And if a vendor comes to me and says, hey, this guy's got issues on his table, I'm on a laser to go get them and figure out what's going on and fix it. And I've banned several vendors because I've given them chances to clean up their act and they just choose not to.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the main difference. Is there's accountability at our shows. Like, you're held to a certain standard, and if you can't follow that standard and you can't evolve to that standard, then you got to go find something else to do. And I think that's what a lot of the other show promoters need to harp on more. And stuff slips by. We get complaints about animals, and I miss them. I can't see every single animal.
Oh, for sure.
No, but
you bring up a really good point in saying, so sometimes you just have to put your foot down, and it may hurt you a little bit in the beginning, but when you kick somebody out of your show that was very, very poor at what they were doing, another vendor that maybe hasn't done the show is going to see that and say, hey, these guys are serious. Like, maybe I should do that show because they're promoting the right thing.
Well, you touched on this earlier. We're trying to, we're always going to have that repeat business. We have those customers that we call them HERPS groupies. They really do follow us all over the country and come to every one of our shows, and they support our vendors. They're not just there to hang out. They buy animals. But those people that are coming in, we're always bringing in new clientele. That's another thing, is I'm advertising for different demographics. I'm pulling in new people into the reptile community because we have to fight these animal rights activists. We have to have a bigger presence. We have to have more people in the hobby. If one person comes up to their first reptile show and buys an animal from somebody and it dies a week later, and that vendor doesn't take care of it because they could give a shit, they'll never touch it. They'll never buy another animal again.
Yeah.
And it's not that vendor that sold them a bad animal. It's, I bought it at HERPS.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
For
so
sure.
We have to protect ourselves in that aspect. But I've actually refunded customers before when vendors have just disappeared, like on animals that have passed away. I've had customers contact me and I've just taken care of it. I don't want them to have a bad taste in their mouth. You want them to have a good experience and stay in the hobby and grow in the hobby. And a lot of our customers, when they started off buying stuff, they're now vending because of that,
And that's, I think you say that, and it makes sense that somebody has an experience someplace, and it's generally the place. That's where I had that positive or negative experience. And so many new people go to a reptile show, either they're hitting their local pet store or they're hitting a reptile show, or they hit their pet store and they say, wow, there's a lot of cool stuff here. And then they end up saying, well, now what other places? And they start Googling, they're like, holy cow, there's this reptile show. What's that? Let's go check it out. So I could see how you're saying that, they would get that bad taste, and what a great, I mean, I'm going to say this, but that's a great business practice. I would probably guess that you're probably in the 2% that would actually do that. And
Well,
that's
and
not
that's
putting,
something.
I'm not putting anybody down by saying that, not at all.
No, I get it.
So,
No, but that's a certain standard that we designed our shows around, and we hope other people will follow that. But I'm not putting pressure on those people. I just trying to do our own thing, and you know, it's over the past couple of years, it's actually exploded into, you know, this monster, and we have sold out shows all the way through 2022, and it's crazy. We have a waiting list for almost every show. Vendors want to vend our shows, and that's amazing. And customers want to come see those vendors. And now, you know, like I was at NERBC and hearing, you know, I look up to Brian Cusco a lot. You know, he's a good guy. He's got great ethics. I respect that man a lot. And to have him flag me down at the show and want to talk to me about, you know, coming to one of our shows and talk to us about, you know, how we do business, that means a lot to me. You know, I take that, you know, more on than just, oh, well, we had, you know, 5,000 people through the door. I could care less about that.
yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is we look at it from a vendor's perspective. If there's 100 or 200 people through the door and they spend a lot of money with our vendors, I don't care. I know that there's growth. I know that there's longevity in that. You know, if there's 10,000 people and nobody makes any money, it doesn't help anybody.
Exactly. So, that's getting people through the door. I think is probably the hardest thing. Getting vendors, I would think would be pretty easy, but getting the customers and a good, like you said before, demographics of people, I think would be pretty tough. And if you don't advertise right, you know, you're spitting in a bucket that's 100 yards.
Well, yeah, the advertising changes. The algorithms change. You got to adjust and adapt, and that's the first couple of hours of every day. That's what I'm looking at, you know. So when you're looking at all your ad sets and who's it reaching, there's no magic button that says you have to push a button and only bring in buyers.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist. So you have to go through a broad list of demographics and say, okay, well, I need to target all of these people, but I don't want to go too broad because then I'm pulling in people that I have no interest in any of this at all. And you never know. There's always going to be a lot of word of mouth advertising, things like that. But that's something that I really have focused on pretty sharply. And we keep increasing our budget almost every year for every show. And there's going to be a glass ceiling there wherever we're like, okay, well, we're spending a lot more money now, but we're not getting any better results. And we haven't hit that mark yet. So we're going to keep pushing the limit and see, you know. Our biggest complaint now is that we have some of our venues aren't big enough, but we're talking, you know, 15, 20,000 square foot venues. These aren't, they're not small. But again, it's like, it's a balance too. We don't want to expand too big. You don't want to go too big. And then the money per vendor comes back down. If you're bringing the same amount of customers in. And we learned that at one of our shows in Lake Charles, the first Lake Charles show we did, we had way too many vendors and not enough customers. So the money per vendor was spread thin. So we scaled back on vendors and made the layout smaller, and then our customer base increased and everyone made money. And then so we figured out that there's a balance that you have to work on at every single show. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot more than just opening the doors and throwing tables in. It really is. And you know, we're in contact with our vendors every day. Like anytime they have an issue, we're an open. My wife answers more messages for that than I do. I usually take all the phone calls from all the guys but yeah, Lori is the one that usually deals with all the changes, and you know, we let vendors pick tables for our sponsors, and if they prepay, and so there's certain things that we do a little differently, and it works for us, and we're always adapting and changing and coming up with new stuff. So it's a lot of fun. So, and then on June, Conroe show will be our 100th show.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. So,
congratulations.
Yeah, we're going to do a big celebration there. Yeah.
Now, how many venomous shows do you have?
All of our shows in Louisiana are venomous because of how the laws work. And then we have Conroe, Austin, seven total locations, right? Yeah, 7 total locations.
Okay.
A few in Texas, and then we have 3 locations in Louisiana. Slidell, Lafayette, and New Orleans. Now, the laws are funny because I live in Texas, so if the city tells me I can't own venomous, then I can't own venomous. But Louisiana is a little different. If you have a permit from State Fish and Game, it doesn't matter what the local law says, you're still allowed to have it. So we actually had to go through the state's attorney's office to get a writ saying that we were allowed to do venomous, and as long as they have their permits. All of our vendors are permitted through the state of Louisiana. So even if they travel from out of state, they have to get their permits. And we don't have but maybe 5 or 6 regular venomous vendors. But they do really well, you know. I mean, they're people that I trust.
Yeah.
I know that they're not going to do something stupid, you know.
Yeah, like sell a rattlesnake to a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Listen,
exactly.
Years and years ago, I've heard those stories where, you know, you go to those shows and people like up north, and people are like, oh, this is my son. He's 14. He really wants a python. Well, here's a Burmese python. Doesn't get bigger than 2 feet. Take it home. $200.
Put in a fishbowl.
Yeah,
put in a fishbowl. It won't grow.
And
there was one kid a couple years ago that actually was apprenticing under one of the venomous guys that's big in Texas, and his dad was a venomous keeper, and he came in. He knew more about venomous than most people there, but he was 16 years old at the time, and his dad bought him a copperhead. But his dad was up front saying, like, I'm buying this for him so he can start working with this as an apprentice animal with this person. And that was the only time that I ever had heard that coming up. And I was kind of hesitant, but I left it. I trusted that vendor. And now that guy, I mean, he's 19, 20 and he actually he's been working with some of the top venomous and probably will be going to work for a zoo pretty soon.
Good.
So he did it the right way, but yeah, our guys are they're really good about following all the calls and making sure it's not something stupid. And that's just about how all of our vendors are.
Yeah.
I mean, as a vendor myself, I would turn down sales if that person was just completely incompetent and I knew they weren't going to do what I asked them to do or told them how to care for that animal. I'm not selling it to them. So that's another one of those things that's kind of been ingrained in our vendors.
I think that's something that is, I say this all the time. When it comes to 2A stuff, the Second Amendment and firearms, you see when there's an issue, everybody circles the wagons. Even people that despise one another, they're all fighting together for the same cause. And then when they win, everybody goes back to doing their own thing. Nobody says anything. They just go back to their normal lives. In the reptile community, I feel like there's so many different factions of people that all these attacks that we have coming, there's just no cohesiveness. And from my understanding, from seeing what I've read about your shows, and obviously I've done my research, a lot of these vendors are close enough that they're a group now. Like you said, it's like a family. So I think what the reptile community is missing as a whole is just that cohesion together, if that's the right word, to be able to fight some of these stupid bills that come up and I'm going to use the term stupid because they make no sense.
Yeah. And here you're perfectly on that. So a few years ago when the Lacey Act stuff came back up, it was going to just affect birds and ticks, especially in Texas and Florida. Yeah. There weren't that many ball python guys that were coming to help. And a lot of people got called out on that. If they decided they were going to do a nationwide ban on ball pythons, oh my God, the money that would flow in, you know? And so that's part of what you're saying is whenever it's you being affected, you want everybody else to help. But whenever it's something else that you don't keep or you don't understand is being affected, why aren't you still helping? Yeah. And that's a big deal. And I've been friends with Phil Goss for a while. He actually has helped out with some stuff in Texas with us and a couple of county bands and things like that. So anytime I've ever had a question, I can message Phil and he's got the answer for me. If not, he's talking to the attorney to figure it out. We had an issue with a vendor of ours sending stuff to Florida and got confiscated, leopard geckos, because they're saying that person didn't have a Class 3 permit. Well, the person sending it doesn't have to have a Class 3 permit. Yeah. But they confiscated the animals at the airport in customs and said they were illegal to send because the person that was sending them from Louisiana to Florida didn't have a Class 3. Well, that doesn't make any damn sense. So Phil helped us get all that straightened out too. So, but the big thing is like this venomous thing. I bet you not half of the ball python or berm guys even blinked an eye at it. Yep. They're like, oh, you're new now. You don't, you know, they don't keep venomous, so they don't understand. Yeah. But that is part of our problem. That's a big part of our problem.
Look at what just
It's
happened
getting
in
better.
Florida.
It's getting better.
It
It's
is.
getting better.
And I'll say that in the last, so, it would have been 3 years ago now, I had my CSP permit. We had retics and berms. So I had that permit for 2 cycles of inspections. So my last inspection about 6 months in was the beginning of 2020, and the CSP changes were coming out, and we got rid of all of our big snakes because I honestly didn't want to deal with what was coming in, and I could read the writing on the wall, and I had a very good feeling from my inspector that when the first call was, hey, don't worry about it, you'll be good. And the next call was, yeah, it's a 50-50 thing. I went, yeah, no, I'm done. The last thing I want to do is have the state of Florida say you have to give up your animals, you have 90 days, and have everybody outside the state of Florida say, I'll give you $50 because I know you have to sell it. What are you going to do? So, but now you look at this ban that just went into effect, and the actual law actually went into effect like 2 weeks ago, I think. And they took and added green iguanas and tegus.
Yeah, I saw that.
All the green iguana and tegu people were like, okay, cool. You know, we can still breed them and sell them out of state and this, that, and the other thing. But what they didn't realize is they took all the other CSP animals, I think 13 or 14 species, and made them prohibited. So you can't breed them, you can't keep them, you can't even get a permit to do amnesty. If you have it open to the public facility, it's almost impossible now.
So is that what? So how did Ty Park get through with Iguanaland? Because I know he had a huge battle ahead of him. He's got approval for Iguanaland. So he's got, but he's getting a zoological permit.
So Ty Park managed. I think they've come to an agreement with breeding, and I think Ty had to get rid of all of his tegus, and he could only keep a handful of them, but no breeding. So the battle that Ty Park just won was the battle of the monitors that escaped and I believe killed a dog. And this is something that, again, is here in Florida, we have like all these bullseyes. I call them the bullseye groups. And you have the free handlers, the YouTube free handlers. You have all these guys that are posting these videos sensationalizing venomous snakes. And those are the things, like, they don't understand when you have a conversation with them or you go back and forth on the internet. Like, I don't care if you want to hold a king cobra in your hands and take that chance, by all means, do you. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But when you do it on camera and somebody from Fish and Wildlife sees it and Fish and Wildlife says, I think it's time to ban those, and they get banned, well, now it does affect me because I just put in for my permit, but I will be a venomous keeper. And when you take that right away from me, it's now not fair anymore. And I think that circle the wagons, everybody work together. I can work with anybody. Just be a little smarter than Fish and Wildlife. And I hate to say this.
And those people that do that for, sensationalism, and there's some big names in the industry that do that for sensation. I'm not going to mention those names, but if we as a community blackballed them and completely just, stopped watching their videos, stopped sharing them, stopped talking about it, they'd go away. They're not getting that attention that they're deserving, you know what I'm saying, or that they think they deserve. But we can't help ourselves. We're like, oh, hey, did you guys see this idiot post this video? And we share it, and then it gets shared again. And you're like, no, that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
I know what happened with Texas and the freeze and stuff, and the guy up the Chris Searcy that posted that stupidity, and MJ and I got into it. He thought I was someone else. He actually recently has apologized to me and wants me to talk about it on the thing. But again, that's one of those things where it's like, why are you still sharing this? Why are you still going? Why do you want to interview a guy that obviously could care less about anybody but himself? And that was one of those things, like, well, I like the way that they did it. Billy went off on that. Was Billy was
so here's me for me. I started this channel because I wanted to have interviews like this. I want to get good people out there. And I will say this, Stephen Cush, for being a young man, has just a great head on his shoulders. And during our show, he was very adamant about saying, hey, I get where you're coming from. I understand your emotion in this. But if you put out good content and I put out good content and this person does, the bad content will slowly fade away. And he's 100% right. But one thing I pride myself on is this. If you're private and you're not on YouTube and you're not a public figure and you free handle and there's been pictures up, I'll never mention your name. I'll never say anything. I don't even know the word. It's not worth it. But Tyler Nolan, Chandler, these guys, their names are going to get mentioned because they have hundreds of thousands of followers. They are large influencers. I believe they love their animals. I have no problem with that. But they take very, 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 very uneducated and miscalculated risks with these animals. And at the end of the day, it's going to hurt us all sooner or later. And it's just like, oh, well, we're going to ban this. We might as well ban this, 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 and this. We might as well do it all, you know?
Yep.
So there's a video floating around somewhere from the yellow. I don't know if you remember a couple of years back, they prohibited all yellow anacondas in Florida.
Yep.
There is a video of somebody asking the chairman of Fish and Wildlife, isn't this going to open the door up for you guys to ban other animals? His words were, absolutely not. We are not coming after any other animals. We feel that these animals don't belong in the wild. We just want to stop it before they get there. That same chairman sat on camera and said, we need to ban all these animals because they can't be in our wild, in our ecosystem. So,
and that's a touchy subject, man, because honestly, you know, it's about educating people. Honestly, I deal with a lot of times. They post on our Texas groups about, oh, well, look at all these people that released the berms in Florida. No, it was a research. I go through the whole thing about the hurricane and all that good shit, right? Well, I don't agree with invasive animals being in the wild. I get that 100% because of what they do. There are some beneficially invasive animals. We have Mediterranean geckos in Texas. They don't compete with any other species because we don't have any nocturnal arboreal gecko species that live in Texas except for those, you know? Mm-hmm. So they're beneficially invasive. They were released at Texas A&M, and we're moving to Bryan College Station, and my walls move at night with so many of them. But there are benefits to some invasive species. But I think that going into ban private ownership without educating yourselves on how we properly take care of these animals, there are going to be escapes. There's going to be issues. I get it. But you're talking about two different whole spectrums. You're talking about wild populations that were either have been for importation, which if you go on fish to Florida, I'm sure you have the list of invasive species on the Florida Fish and Game website. Every single one of them says pet trade.
Yep.
Every single one of them is pet trade. They said there's a colony of leopard geckos near Miami. I don't know. Yep. I mean, like
there's supposed to be one by Tampa as well.
I'm actually going down to the Keys for 10 days for a family vacation in July. And I would actually want to go out and go try to find some Phelsuma and Grandis and all these day geckos, you know. And I know they're invasive and things like that, but I'm not going to go out there and kill them or anything. I get that, but there is a balance that needs to be said with the berms and the tegus and the iguanas. I know that the damage they do to our ecosystem, especially there for the native wildlife, but there's two sides to every story. So
sure, and the other side of that story is cats.
Yes. Oh yeah. Trust me. Don't even get me started on that. Actually, it was funny because my kids have grown up in this. Their SAT questionnaire or their SAT their essay for the SAT was how the negative impact of feral cats on our natural ecosystem. And they're like, oh, we got this. Yeah, we got this. Dad teaches us all this all the time about feral cats, you know? And that's so awesome. That's a big thing in Texas. And I know in Florida, they were actually going to open up a hunting season for it for a while, but we don't, there's a lot of people that preach the whole TNR thing here, and we don't agree with that at all. We just tell people, I'll tell my own family member they're an idiot if they let the cat outside, you know? So, but you know, they're not going to see that because they see them as domesticated, furry, cute animals.
Yep.
You know, they don't understand that. They're not looking at that. They're also getting paid, again, by lobbyists, putting money in their pockets to pass these bills. So,
well, listen, so Nerd posted that video a few weeks ago about the South Florida guys, Zach Ketchum fishing, and these other guys, you know, catching berms and spearing them and shooting them with a bow and arrow. So if you look on Florida Fish and Wildlife under the Burmese python section for hunting, it clearly states in there they are to be dispatched humanely with a firearm to the back of the head, small caliber, in an area where you could shoot a firearm. If you cannot, a bolt gun, you know, so it goes through all this stuff. So I took that video and I sent a couple long-winded emails to a couple different senators and one of the managers or sergeants from Florida Fish and Wildlife. Florida Fish and Wildlife sergeant from our area forwarded it down south. They decided they're not going to do anything. The reason being, and this is, listen, it's speculation, but I'll be damned if I think that hits the nail right on the head. These guys are catching berms. They're then releasing them and shooting them with bows and arrows and spears, but they're releasing them in the middle of Miami in a manhole in the middle of a parking lot. They're pulling the top off. Oh, look what we just found. It's horrible. And they're releasing this video. That video had 13 million views in a month. So they're creating sensationalized issues. And Fish and Wildlife's like, we're not going to do anything about that. They're fighting this battle for us, and we don't even have to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the thing is we're not going to, unless those idiots realize that they're just going to hurt themselves. But that's never. They're looking at, oh, I'm going to get this many views and likes and clicks, and that's just.
I'm going to make $100,000.
That's all they're looking at.
I'm going to make $100,000 using a blowgun to shoot iguanas out of a tree and watch the thing convulse on the ground, and just completely inhumane. And if I was,
and that gives more.
That
gives more ammo to the animal rights activists too.
Yeah, if I was out in public, the dock that those guys were on, all three of them would have been in the water. It was ridiculous. I mean, and again, here we are. We're all animal lovers, and I know these guys are. And just because it's an invasive animal doesn't mean you treat it with
it doesn't need to suffer
at all.
It doesn't need to suffer. No, it doesn't need to suffer at all.
Yeah. So do you guys have plans on expanding east?
No, man. No. we get that question so much. No, don't let my wife answer no, it's.
Wait a second. Is she going to say yes? Because if she's going to say yes, let her answer.
She'd put a show on in every city in the world if she wanted to. And that's just because of she's a workaholic. So she wants to be working constantly, and that's just her thing. And she does an amazing job at what she does. But for us, it was never about how big we could get or how much money we could make or whatever, any of that shit. It was about trying to change the game and trying to get other people to follow along, maybe learn something. And we learn stuff from other people. I've helped a lot of show promoters, and they've helped me too. But when I started doing this, I had a lot of people reach out to me. I had my haters too. I always have my haters, but a lot of people that I kind of was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. What are you doing? And checking with them and, hey, let's try this. And what have you done billboards? And how is your advertising going? And so we tried to help each other, and a few of those are getting really big right now, you know. So, but I don't think that for us, what we're trying to do is find a better work-life balance because, you know, I have kids and things like that. My girls are about to graduate this year. My son's 22. He's actually going to come on and work with us, but we're doing 30 shows already. You know, and it's like I said, it's not gonna be a show. That's more than half the year. It's not gonna be a show without my wife and I. So we have less weeks off than we actually work, and we work during the week when we're not at shows anyway.
Sure.
So we're actually gonna be like, we're trying to figure out how to actually scale back a little bit. I hate to say that, and it's just so far away. There's no way I can send a crew out to go do this. I just don't believe in that. You know, there's not anybody that. And I have some really amazing friends and family that would do a great job at helping, but they're not going to put as much effort and time and heart into it as my wife and I being there. It's just, it's not going to be the same, you know, and we're so close with our vendors. That's our time to see our other extended family.
It's almost like
going out further east.
It's almost like your shows are really your break, because I'm sure I helped run a paintball series, and during the week was the busiest time. when there was no events going on, because everybody's calling you about every little problem and
Yeah,
questions.
it's a little different. My wife's busier during the week, honestly. She's coordinating so much with vendors and everything. I'm usually just checking ads and sharing and talking to people every once in a while and basically dicking around. But when it comes to showtime and it's time to do setup and get the vendor set up and deal with all the, because there's always vendor drama and there's always issues, and I do my own electrical. Like I average between 30 and 60 miles between the show a weekend walking, because I'm checking on vendors, I'm helping with vendors, I'm checking on the front, I'm helping up front if they need me every once in a while, and I'm literally behind tables selling animals for vendors. If somebody's got to go take a piss, I'm at their table watching their table. If they need lunch, I'll go get them lunch. Like I'm there to. I work for my vendors; they don't work for me.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. I really do work. And no, the people aren't coming to the shows to see me and Lori. Well, a lot of people come to see my wife, but they're coming to see the vendors and the animals. That's it. That's what the focus should be on. You know, so I mean, I do stupid, crazy shit all the time. It's because I love this. It's fun, and that's something that a lot of people have lost promoting shows. Is it's not fun for them. It's a paycheck, and it's not a paycheck to me. It's my life. It's so much fun to be at a show in a week, and we are absolutely freaking exhausted on a Monday. Like the last Monday after the Stafford show, we literally slept all day long. I think we woke up for lunch, and then we slept until Tuesday because we put everything into it, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and listen,
but I can't keep that pace up.
For the people watching this, understand that when you hear Shawn say, "I do all the electric, all the setup," you guys, we as patrons going to these shows, we see the final product. We don't see what goes into it beforehand, unless you're watching Cusco does some great video pre-setup of shows. He does a great job with getting what's going on in the background and vendors setting up animals. And I could imagine you run here, run there, run here, run there. I have an electrical problem. Okay, let me fix that.
Yep.
So
I need a chair. I need a garbage can.
Understand
whatever
that when we as patrons go to these shows, guys, say thank you to the promoters and the people that are running the show, because we have a great thing. It's a fantastic way. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if I mentioned this, but we all in our house have animals. Both my boys, my daughter, my second oldest daughter is in New York. She works at a vet's office. She keeps reptiles. My wife has boas. My younger son has a boa and some carpet pythons. So we do this as a family because it was something that I was so into when the kids were younger that I wanted them to be involved without being involved if they didn't want to. So our weekends, when there's a reptile show, we all spend the weekend together. We live an hour from Daytona. So we'll spend, the whole weekend at the Daytona show and hang out with all of our friends and see the vendors. And, the show is okay, but at the end of the day, we're really not there for the animals. We're there for the people and to hang out and have fun, you know. So,
yeah, exactly. You see a lot of that too at our shows. And my family's all been involved in this from the beginning as well. So
it's fun, isn't it?
Oh yeah, well, and it's work though. It is work when you're taking care of it. My son actually stays at home while we're on the road and takes care of our animals. And I'm always adding crazy stuff. I went away from leopard geckos and went into some, more exotic, weird stuff and some things that, like 1 and 2 pairs of things that I want to work with, and he knows more about a lot more animals than most people do that vend our shows. And he's 22 years old because he's been 7 years old. I think he got his first reptile. He got a Snyder skink when he was 7 years old. He's 22. Nice. So he's seen it evolve. And there was a couple of times where he was just like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And, we'll take care of it. But he does a great job of taking care of everything. And now my girls are actually going to be going to A&M. They're graduating this year and going to A&M, and they're actually going to be staying at the house and taking care of the animals while we have a lot less than 1,000 animals. I have 50 animals maybe. Nice. I've got some I've got some Ackies and some Leachies and some true Berber skinks. Those are really cool, and a couple of aquatic turtles and stuff like that. I don't have a crazy amount. I do have Aldabras. Those are cool. I got the Aldabras for Lori. Those are her Those are her Valentine's Day. So, but they know how to take care of all that stuff and still be able to do their thing. And my son's going to come work, so it'll be fun. But we're excited to see where it goes to. I just, when I'm going back to the expansion thing. I'd love to go all over the place. It's just not logistically possible. We have to focus on so much. Here's my thing. I'm not going to say anything negative about anybody else. I can't do every show every weekend. There's no way, because I can't put enough effort into this show already. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how to maximize our effort and our budget in this show this weekend. And if I have no breaks in between, then I'm advertising for 5 shows in a row or 4 shows in a row. It's impossible to keep up with everything and hold everything to that quality that every single show should be. For us, it is. For some younger people, man, they can hammer it out and do, like Mickey Meyer. That guy went crazy. I love Mickey. Mickey's one of those guys that we talked about advertising before the Show Me Snakes, Show Me Reptile Expo.
Okay.
He's doing a show like every weekend. He's doing a show in 2 different places on the same weekend. Like, it's crazy, but I know what he's doing. I know exactly what he's doing. And like I said, I respect him for his hustle. But for me, I just can't focus enough energy onto that show to make it the best one possible. That's what we're looking for. She gets mad at me all the time because she's like, hey, we need to do this for this show. I'm like, but we have Pueblo this weekend. I'm focused on Pueblo. Like, this is my show this week. Next week I'll worry about the next one. Yeah. My ads start running a couple of months in advance for every show. So I'm always on top of that. But as far as just little stuff it's big stuff for her, but it's little stuff for me sometimes. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, she handles the venues and like vendor list and stuff like that, and I do all the website stuff. And if she does it on Facebook and says, hey, this is updated, and it's not updated on the website, oh my God, it takes, she's about to kill me.
I'm waiting to see something fly into the screen here.
I'm keep looking over my shoulder, but she's actually over there working on her laptop right now, trying to catch up stuff. So for this weekend, but yeah, we do have a show this weekend in Pueblo. That's why we're here. It stopped snowing finally. But it's been a year and a half. No, what's last July? Almost a year since there's been a show in Colorado, the entire state.
Oh wow!
So it should be really good. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
It was ours. Yeah, so it should be a really good turnout, and we're excited about it. This is the farthest show that we do, because we live in the Dallas area right now, so it's 12 hours away, 11 hours away. And we drive everywhere. We drive to the shows. We bring all our stuff. We do all the setup. It's a beating. So adding 20 more shows, oh no, there's no way. No, because you know what, we would love to. There's places I'd love to go do on the East Coast, but then we're that many more hours away. And
okay, so I got this figured out. I had an epiphany. So here's what you do: you take all of your stuff that you have for the show, all of your because I see your truck, which is awesome, and you take all that stuff and you rent a storage unit and you put it in the city in the storage unit. And then you just fly there. You get in your rental.
Yeah, we thought about that for Colorado. We actually thought about that for Colorado. But again, it would just be, yeah, it would be still, we'd be doing more shows, less time at home. Yeah. We want to be able to enjoy our time and
listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I completely respect that. And family comes first. I think what I see, and I'm going to really push to try to get Slidell is like 8 hours from us. So it's really not that bad.
That's a great show.
Yeah.
Fantastic show.
And I think that what you guys are doing and what I see and the videos that I've seen from the shows and the things that I've heard other people say, you're doing it right. There's no reason, like you said, there's no reason to open the floodgate and get bigger and then everything suffers a little bit. It's not like one thing suffers. It's everything suffers a certain percentage. And
then it gets exponentially larger that way.
And it grows
so
fast.
Our hope is that by doing the way we're doing it and people saying you guys should go to the HERPS show and see how we do it, and we're hoping that other people will kind of say, okay, well, maybe we're not doing it the right way. So maybe that will help the shows that are on the East Coast or, whatever. I've been to Pomona. My wife and I went to Pomona a couple of years ago. That's insanely large. It's a massive show. Yeah. But in the back of that venue, they're selling gutters and bathtubs and all this, like they're sold out for space, but they're still doing the same thing that we always complain about that other shows do, not letting other vendors. That was 200,000 square foot. They were busing people in from the parking lot when we left.
Wow.
Like it is a massive, but it's in LA. It's
yeah.
Look at the population density there too. It's just a huge show. But we walked around and we're like, you know what? I've pretty much seen this at all of our shows. It wasn't something that I had to blew my. There was one girl that had some knobtails there that I'd never seen before. She had some crazy, but she was sold out before the doors even opened. Like we got vendor badges and walked in early on Saturday, and she was sold out. She was done for the whole weekend, So I know there's a lot of money, and that was crazy. So I've still never been to Tinley. I need to go to Tinley, but it's always around one of our shows, So NARBC in Dallas was always my home show. That was Arlington was a home show, so. I've been there for years and been to that show for years, and always try to stop by whenever I'm at home when it's going. I was there a couple of weeks ago. That's when I ran into Brian and all those guys, and so
yeah,
it was.
I think again, and this is something that I know would never work, but in the back of my mind, I always think that somebody like yourself, you've grown a reptile show that is, in my honest opinion, from just the look of professionalism, the website, the travel, the setup, the good words from other people and reviews. If there was a way to, and this is, I talked to Rob about this, for us to create, like we donate to USR. My big argument with the guys in Florida was the tegus and iguana ban. You can breed them and sell them out of state until 2024. After that, July 2024, it's gone. So I said, you guys really missed the boat. If I had a business and I was making $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year, whatever, why wouldn't you say, hey, the new permitting price is going to be $1,000 and you got to pay the state $5 or $10 for every animal. And that $10 is going to go back to conservation to help eradicate the current population of animals that shouldn't be there. And I said, you guys just missed the boat. I mean, what are you thinking? It's called the cost of doing business. I work in pharma and I don't breed reptiles. I don't have a reptile business. I love reptiles. I work at a facility in Gainesville, or out by Gainesville with Venomous. But I have a 9-to-5, and it's like, if I wanted to breed reptiles, the same way we have to pay for testing, we spend over $1 million a year in testing. Well, that's called the cost of doing business. Would we like to not spend over $1 million a year for testing? Yeah. But
no, those people would gladly pay that $1,000. They would jump right on it,
And what it would do is the people that aren't doing it right, it would weed them right out. They would no longer be able to have that permit because they're not doing it properly. So there's ways to do it to make it better. My biggest fear, like I said, is that other states will start jumping on and just trying to sneak stuff in the back door. And sooner or later, it's going to catch us. Like you said, it's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. Something's going to slip through.
Yeah. So, well, listen, we can cut this off now. I know you guys got a lot going on. I really appreciate your time. I love it. We're going to make every effort to get down to the end of July show. Again, you're only 8 hours away. So I think me and my wife maybe make a weekend out of it and come out, because it looks like it'd be a lot of fun. So
absolutely. Be awesome.
Again, thanks for your time. This video go up Thursday next week. I'm going to put all your information, social media stuff. Guys, if you are in the area, HERPS show, go see it, herpsshow.net. Get on there and check it out. Best website out there. So I really appreciate your time, Shawn. Thank you so much. Hold on one second because I want to ask you something off air. So
thanks, man.